Hi, as part of our 4-Sunday countdown to Christmas, we've been going over the 4 key things that the birth of Jesus brought into this world. And today we're going to focus on one of them, hope. Now, last Sunday, I preached a message about the difference between how we, the modern world, defines hope and what the Bible assumes about hope. The main difference is that in the Bible, hopes come from the character of God, while today's hope is discovered in small, encouraging moments in a rather dim and gloomy world. Now, I just wanted to point out that modern hope is not necessarily a bad thing. I just wanted to point out that there's distinctions of how the world hopes and how the Bible hopes. I believe that all types of hope is beneficial. I mean, hope is hope, and it gives fuel to live another day in this dark world. Okay, so today I want to talk about this question. What if God's hope isn't good enough for you? What if God shows you something that he defines as hope, but for you, it just feels kind of mediocre? It's not that hopeful for you. So let's just say that you're in this really sad state and God shows up and he gives you some inspiration. But for you, that inspiration wasn't good enough. What do you do then? So today we're going to take a look at Genesis chapter 15, just the first part of it. So this is what it says. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abraham said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. Okay, so this is what's happening so far. God shows up to Abram, which we later call him Abraham, and tells him, Hey, I have a plan for you. You and your descendants are going to go save the world. But the problem at this point in the story is that he has no children. So Abraham at this point in the story needs a little pickup. He needs a little hope. Let's read on. So God took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Okay, now traditionally we react to this story as, wow, that's a lot of offsprings. I mean, no one can count how many stars are in the sky, right? But maybe we need to read a little further in the story to get the gist of what God is trying to say here. So about 6 verses later in verse 12, this is what it says, as the sun was setting. So this implies that God told Abraham to count the stars in the sky in broad daylight. So when Abraham looked into the sky to count the stars, guess how many stars he counted? 1. We call that the sun. And this is very underwhelming. I mean, how is Abraham supposed to start a God movement with just him, his wife, and one son? I mean, didn't God promise Abraham that one day he'll have so many descendants that they'll become a nation? You see, ancient Jewish scholars, they observed that the star that Abraham was gazing at wasn't any ordinary star. It was the brightest of them all. It was the sun. I mean, the sun is so bright that it could turn night into day. So while Abraham might have been disappointed by the fact that he only saw one star in the sky, it was the brightest and biggest star of them all. It was the star with the most potential, and as God clarifies a few chapters later, he tells Abraham that his descendants will be as numerous as the sands on the shore. And as we know today, Abraham has more descendants than we can count. Yes, Abraham didn't get to see the promise of God come true and come to fruition in his lifetime, but it didn't matter to him because that hope, knowing that he's going to have at least one kid that's going to have the most potential of them all, that hope kept him content until the day he died. Knowing that God was going to take that one child and bring forth a nation that could eventually become the light of the world was enough for him. You see, when we look at the hope God provides for us, sometimes we're underwhelmed. We think God might bless us with an abundance of something, but he only gives us a limited amount of something. You see, God's understanding of that small hope is that it has the potential of growing exponentially. And as people with finite understanding, we don't see that potential. I mean, for those of you who know the story of Jesus, a boy brought to him 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And for many people, they didn't see the potential of what that could do. But to Jesus, he knew that it could feed a multitude of people. So if God has given you a small bit of inspiration that you think is not enough to give you hope, maybe it's time that we understand that whatever God gives us, it can unfold into something that's brighter, something that's bigger, something that's even greater than we can imagine. So in the midst of trials and feeling a bit gloomy, may you find contentment in the hope that God has given you this holiday season. God bless.